Hi. You mostly know me as astrologer and psychotherapist Penny Dix, and I'd like to welcome you to our new channel, which, as you know, I've been promising for some time now. Well, here it finally is, our first introduction video, and within this channel, which is called Channeling with Penny and Sarah, first of all, I want to just briefly introduce you to my friend and colleague, partner in crime, Sarah Sands-Smith. So, Sarah, please tell everybody who you are, because I've just told them who you are. Now you can.
Well, as Penny just said, I'm Sarah, and I'm hypnotherapist, counsellor, and do a little bit of channeling as well. So hence the channel, Channeling by Penny and Sarah.
I would say you do a little bit more than channeling, Sarah.
Well, I'm being modest.
Yes, but when when you first came back into my life, or we came back into each other's lives, let's be a little bit more politically correct, because it's not all about me.
It's not?
What happened was, I'd invited you round here. We're going to tell you this story first, because then I'm just going to go through a list of little ideas we've got about what we're going to be including in the channel. But I want to tell you this first, because this was really very interesting and strange and involves bilocation. Now, if any of you are not clear or aware of what bilocation is, it's where somebody can be in one place, like Sarah can be sitting here now, talking to me and talking to you, but she could also be appearing at the restaurant down the road to meet a friend. So, because maybe that's what she's got planned for later, that kind of experience. So what happened was, Sarah was coming round here to meet me and my friend, or our friend actually, mutual friend, and I'm sitting here with our mutual friend and we're waiting for Sarah, who has not arrived. I heard, well, both me and my friend heard, the door open, the front door open, and Sarah was actually bringing me a cat carrier to borrow for one of my cats to get them to the vet, which we still haven't completely succeeded, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because as you all know, I do waffle a bit, but I'm coming back to the point now. So what happened was, we hear the front door open. Now, that should have been my first clue really, because Sarah did not have a key. Anyway, I went to my friend, oh, that's Sarah, she's here. And it sounded like she came in, or a person came in, shut the door, and I heard what sounded like, because I knew she was bringing the cat carrier, put down on the floor. And then I called out, Sarah, is that you? Has someone let you in? Because I thought maybe she'd run into a neighbour who's got a spare key, and they said, oh, we'll let you in, or whatever. And anyway, nobody came down the corridor. So my friend and I look at each other and think, what's that about? And about 2 minutes later, the intercom buzzer goes, and I get up and answer it, and it's Sarah. And perhaps you'd like to take over the story from here.
Yes, so I walk in, and Penny and our friend sort of looked at me and looked at each other, and I was, gosh, what's going on in here? The energy feels very weird. And they were, oh. And then they told me what happened, and they'd literally heard the sound of the plastic and metal cat carrier being put down on the ground. It's a very distinctive sound. Yeah. So they literally heard the sound of that, and then they heard what sounded like a person in the apartment. But obviously I was still down the road making my way up here. So, that was a really strange experience. But also later that night, because that was pre-Penny's back surgery, she was in a lot of pain. She wasn't feeling well. She actually heard me come into the apartment, check on her, and go out again. So we had a couple of other experiences similar to that, didn't we?
Which was extraordinary, wasn't it? And, bearing in mind Sarah didn't have a key, she did have a key later on because she was helping look after my cats when I had my surgery. But we bring that story in to kind of introduce, I guess in a sense, the sort of extraordinary experiences we've both been experiencing together in our friendship. And that really is what has led us to the point we're at now, where we have decided to launch this channel, Channeling with Penny and Sarah. So what I've got is a list of kind of questions, if you like, that I thought I'll throw at Sarah and see how she comes back, because we just want to give you an introduction and a brief, well, it probably won't be that brief, but you know what I mean, and a kind of an idea of what this channel is going to be about, because this is a total experiment. We have no idea, really, at this point, how this channel will unfold. So I'm going to start with just a little introduction, questions to Sarah, just to find out for you who she is, why she's here, and her kind of background in esoteric and spiritual kind of that spiritual realm. But I have to say quickly, we are not floaty. We are not woo-woo. We do not drift around in caftans. I just add that in quickly.
Yeah, I think, yes, I can safely say I am the least wafty person around. So
Sarah is very grounded. And actually, before I start going through the questions, I just want to add that the astrology really works well with us doing this video now, because as many of you will also know about my astrology channel and have been watching my videos, you will know that Pluto, the planet of transformation, has just moved into the sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius, of course, is about raising human consciousness on one level. And so I just kind of throw that in as a little kind of taster of what may be to come. So now I'm going to go through the questions. So Sarah, what I wanted to ask you is, how long have you been aware that you channel non-physical entities or a non-physical entity? And also, it's reminding me that also when I knew you before you came back to Gozo after being away for a long time, you seem to be a pretty good medium as well.
Well, I don't know if I define it as mediumship, but just to give you a bit of background, Penny and I met when I did Reiki healing training with her. So she's my guru, basically, on Reiki. Well, I'm being nice.
Don't be, you're not normally.
I'm flattered. Well, it's for the benefit of the audience.
Oh yes, okay, right. Carry on.
So that's how we initially met, and I obviously knew nothing about her. I knew nothing about her family or anything like that. And we discovered that I was actually channeling her mother, and I was actually experiencing, her mother's medical issues, things like that.
You could describe it because it was very spooky.
It was. I'm a person with naturally incredibly low blood pressure, to the point where doctors actually have to take it 2 or 3 times to make sure I'm still alive. So, for me to experience rising blood pressure was a really, really extraordinary experience. And that's actually what I did experience. I could feel my blood rushing faster through my veins. I could feel, the sort of sensation like I was about to have an aneurysm or something similar. So that was a very strange experience.
And it was during the Reiki training, wasn't it?
It was. And then I had another experience with your mother as well during that Reiki training. We subsequently discovered that when Penny's mother wants to contact her, she comes through me. And maybe she picked me because we both have or had a massive love for the tennis player Rafael Nadal and for tennis. Absolutely, I'm totally his biggest fan, seen him play all around the world, and obviously completely devastated by his retirement this week. So, you know, I'm slightly traumatized at the moment by that. But maybe she chose me for those reasons, because, you know, we love fashion, all that kind of thing, quite a lot in common. I think we'd have got on
Handbags.
Handbags, yes.
Lipstick.
One of my, you know, some of my guilty pleasures coming out here. But her signal now to me is, because she loved Julio Iglesias, and I can't say I actually do share her passion for him, but that's her signal when she wants to communicate. He will come on the radio, or he'll pop up on the internet if I'm on something on there, or, you know, or even his son, Enrique, will pop up as well. And that's her signal that she wants to communicate with me. And a few weeks ago, we had an experience where things kept falling down and things like that. And we were, gosh, that's weird. What's going on? You know, is there an earth tremor or something? And then I was at home, just getting on with my work, and suddenly Julio Iglesias pops up on the radio. And suddenly, wow, Penny's mum comes through and goes, what do I have to do to get your attention, both of you? You know, I was, oh, sorry.
Yeah,
we've been busy.
Yeah, but it was just so extraordinary. And the first time that Sarah had this experience of the rise in blood pressure, I'll just explain that my mother actually had a stroke, and it was a bleed, not a clot. And that was the beginning of the 16-year period that I had, where I looked after her as a full-time carer, because she was wheelchair bound. So Sarah, you know, when you do trainings, say for Reiki or any workshops, you know, the facilitator or the facilitators do not really share, well, they don't share personal life information, because it's not what you're there for. So it was just so super extraordinary. But while we're on that, so that's the mediumship side that seems to still be around, and it will come every now and then. For instance, when I was having the surgery, she would, you know, it was as if she was using Sarah as her channel to tell me she was there and kind of looking after me, kind of taking care. But I'm more curious about, because this is where we're going with this channel, about the channeling and how long you've been aware that you actually have probably been channeling non-physical teachers, light workers, star people, star beings for most of your life.
Yes, I mean, I think I have been doing it probably most of my life, but was somewhat unaware of it. I mean, if I go back to being a child, I was always how should I put it, a slightly unusual child in that, you know, I wasn't into...
Do tell us more.
I wasn't into dolls or that kind of thing. I like reading, you know, from an incredibly young age. I could read very fluently. I liked reading adult type books. I was interested in more sort of esoteric subjects rather than, you know, standard children's books, that kind of thing. And I was described many times as, oh, that child's an old soul by people, and, you know, they were a little bit freaked out. So when I was about 7, I visited Pompeii. I said to the guide, oh, the baths are over there, and oh, that's where the amphitheatre is. And he was sort of like, oh gosh, what a strange child, rather freaked out. But I actually physically knew my way around. So, you know, that sort of takes us into past lives regression territory, where subsequently I did discover that I did have a past life in Pompeii. So,
and that's a nice segue into your work as a hypnotherapist and the past life regression. So perhaps you could talk a little bit about how you see your way forward as a hypnotherapist and embracing the channeling side as well, and what form that could take, how that could develop hypnotherapy in general.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling about hypnotherapy is that some people see it as a very sort of left field type of therapy, and it's not something that they think is particularly relevant, or, you know, they link it with stage hypnotism and, you know, those silly people who
Be a
try to,
chicken.
yes, that kind of thing. Yeah, I know. There's an element of humiliation in terms of stage hypnotism in some cases. So I think there is still a little bit of stigma in some people's minds about it, whereas, if it is used correctly, it can be an incredibly valuable therapy for curing so many different issues that people have. I have a particular interest in helping people to remove sort of blockages to success, either in sport or business. But also past life regression is a phenomenally interesting area, and that is something that Penny and I are developing together. We're going to be doing a very interesting project relating to that, and she's already had some amazing experiences and incredibly vivid experiences which have illuminated some of the health issues she's carried through, obviously various lives that have manifested in her current life. So that really is an area which, we're going to be developing a lot more.
Yeah, because it's like unresolved karma, isn't
Exactly.
it?
Yeah. So, people carry or can carry so many issues forward which affect their relationships in their current life, their health, it can affect their careers, their self-belief. There's just so many unresolved conflicts and things that people can carry forward. So that's really something. I guess my mission is to try to make hypnotherapy more understandable for people, more accessible, and demystify it effectively.
Yeah, that sounds good. And please tell us about because I know about the non-physical entity that you channel. And maybe I'll start by saying, because obviously I told Sarah about the non-physical entities that I channel, which some of you will know about, but I'll just introduce them quickly. The blue light star beings, and they are from the system of Orion, the star system of Orion. And they have actually been around with me, but I'm going to talk about that in another video. Probably going back at least 30, 40 years. And there's a big backstory to that, but I'm not going to talk about it today, which makes a change for me to shut up, doesn't it? Yes, I know.
No comment.
So obviously as Sarah and I got to know each other on a more kind of personal level, I started to share my experiences of this channeling, and because obviously Sarah knows I do the astrology. And so then Sarah started to tell me about a non-physical light being that she too is channeling. So perhaps you would like to enlighten us on that.
Yes, I mean, I was very conscious all of my life. I've had a being there who has looked out for me. I've been in several situations where, my life could have been at risk, basically, like, sort of missing bombs going off 3 times. There was...
that was in Thailand, wasn't it?
Well, one was in Thailand and then the others were in London.
Oh, wow.
Growing up. And then obviously the, 7th of July in London, where there were the 4 different bombs.
The double-decker bus and...
Yes.
Yeah.
So that, I'd been meant to visit somebody in Aldgate at 9 o'clock the morning the bombs went off. I was leaving my office, the phone was ringing, I was thinking, if I pick up the phone, am I going to miss my train home? And I was, no, I'll pick it up, it might be something important. It was the client cancelling that I was meant to be seeing the following morning, so I ended up not going to Aldgate in London, which actually meant I wasn't on the train that blew up.
Oh my God, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's been at least 4 instances I can think of off the top of my head, where I've been conscious that somebody has been looking out for me, that they've helped me make sort of decisions. Bomb went off in Thailand, very close when I lived in Bangkok, very close to the office I worked. And I was on my way out. I was very keen to get home that night, probably going off to play tennis or something like that. And a colleague stopped me and we had a very, very inane conversation. But that inane conversation saved my life, because if I had actually left when I'd wanted to leave, I would have been parallel, with the bomb going off. So there's been a lot of these instances where clearly somebody has had my best interests at heart. But I wasn't really aware of who or what that was. People talk about guardian angels, things like that. And then about 2 years ago, I became aware of sort of blue light. I became aware of this blue entity. He's a very, very sweet little man called Blue Man. And he likes to be called BM for short, which is very cute. He's very down to earth. He has a great sense of humour. He's very practical, but he's also very kind. And he really doesn't just have my best interest at heart. He has the best interest of humanity. And he really was very sort of under the radar, I guess. Made himself sort of known to me nearly 2 years ago. And then suddenly, a few weeks ago, said, I really want you to start to talk to people about me and what I do and that kind of thing. Hence, obviously,
doing
our
this
idea.
channel.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. This is our way of actually sort of making his, I guess,
information,
teachings,
and
wisdom.
Prophesize.
Well, this is the thing.
Prophecies.
He does. He comes up with all kinds of things, such as who is going to become ill. What their illness is going to be.
And politics.
People he's going to. His political predictions have been phenomenal because he's predicted people are going to win elections who haven't even been in the running, things like that. So it's very much.
The information seems to be spot on that he comes, so that as being on the receiving end of the information that BM brings in, it kind of, I've come to sort of to learn to love him because I can trust him. I have absolute faith in the advice, the teachings, the suggestions that BM brings in. Now, you all know that there are many people now, and many people on YouTube who do a lot of channeling of non-physical entities, especially star beings. And you'll all be aware of Nancy Rebecca, who channels the blue light star beings. And that seems to be the the Orion lot that I'm tuned into, that have been around for so long. There are 9 of them, and which is just weird, but they're very tall beings of light, and I've seen these blue light orbs and now it's becoming blue shafts of light, and also other colours are coming in, which has been extraordinary, like pinks and reds. And I had my eyes checked by opticians on several occasions, and my retinas checked, because I did think, maybe it's a retina detachment or something. But every optician that I've been to, here in Gozo and Malta, and also in the UK, have said, nothing wrong with your eyes, they're fine. Well, apart from the fact I can't see, but that's, that's why I wear glasses. But, there we go. But I have inner sight. I have inner sight and insight sometimes, not always. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, the interesting thing is you have 9 of them. I have one small one. So I did question that. And I said, well, why have you got 9 and I've only got 1? And apparently, when I questioned BM about this, we manifest ourselves in ways that make us seem accessible. So, if I'd seen 9 incredibly tall, sort of 12-foot beings, I would be rather freaked out. Whereas I see this kindly, cuddly individual, and isn't he sweet? And, I listen to him. I'm not freaked out. So, I think that's a quite simplistic explanation, isn't it?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah.
And this is something that we will be exploring and bringing in, and the information that BM brings in, and also the information that comes through my blue light star beings. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Nancy Rebecca, who has a channel on YouTube, when I first heard her talking about the blue light star beings, I was kind of like, oh my God, because that's what I'm experiencing. And then when you read all the comments in her videos, and she's done several interviews with Pam Gregory, the British astrologer, the interviews or the comments are all about loads of people, you know, literally hundreds of people are going, yeah, me too, I see them or I hear them. So there is definitely a kind of shift in collective energy, which links in, as I was talking about at the beginning, with this move of Pluto, the planet of transformation, into Aquarius, which is about getting in touch with these higher frequencies and recognizing the kind of divine mind as one, as the universe as a whole. It is a complete kind of interconnected psychic web. That's the only way I can describe it. But more of that another time, because I just want to bring us back to, because we need to start bringing this particular short introduction video to a completion. But we do have to talk about George, my cat that went missing, and the amazing way that through BM, through Sarah, and through my faith and belief that he would return, that we somehow manifested his return or him being found. So do you want to take over at this point, Sarah?
So obviously once George went missing, I really tried to focus, tried to sort of, you know, just contact him, find out, you know, what was going on, where he was he okay?
And remember, you've got 6 cats, so you know cats very well.
Yes. So I could see him in fields, I could see a hill behind the fields, I could see a blue door, I could see the number 3, I could see him coming back on Wednesday or on my birthday. And it turned out he came back the morning of my birthday. The lady who helped us trap him and bring him back lives at number 63, very close to a blue door, and where he had been wandering around, there were a lot of fields with a hill in the background. So there was a lot of stuff that I could see, but obviously, you know, there's a lot of fields and hills on Gozo, so, you know, I couldn't, unfortunately, I wasn't able to pinpoint. So we had a lot of sightings, we were running around Gozo for a month, we had traps out, all kinds of things going on. It got to the Friday before my birthday, and I was, right, is he going to come back tomorrow? I really, you know, I still believe he is going to, but I'm going to try and manifest him coming back. So I went to bed and I got myself into a meditative state, you know, basically a sort of trance. And I'm describing this very simplistically. The whole process actually took over an hour from end to end, but I pictured George being caught up in a large vortex with the energy propelling him into the trap that we had set. And I pictured this for probably 40 minutes, something like that, sending out the energy to him to bring him back and, you know, telling him that's where he needed to be. He needed to be in that trap. So 8:30 the following morning, a Saturday, got a phone call from Penny. She said, I think we've got him. I looked at the video. I was, wrong angle, not quite sure. Then he meowed, and he has a very distinctive meow, and I was, yeah, that's George. So, you know, best birthday present ever.
Yeah.
Did my manifestation and the vortex work? I can't answer that. I would like to think it did.
I think it did. I really do, because I was also working very hard with thinking about shifting myself or ourselves onto the timeline where George definitely returns. And you will have heard me with my astrology talk about timelines, and it's something else that we will talk about on this channel in the future. But it was like I was really working hard at manifesting being on the timeline where George returns. Excuse me. And what happened was I had an image or a vision right from the start of me not going anywhere to pick him up, but of him being brought to me and me opening my front door and seeing his little head kind of wobbling like this and kind of out of the bars of and it was kind of like a white crisscross cage, which was the cage that the animal welfare lady brought him home in. And that is exactly what happened. I opened the door and there's our lovely friend from animal welfare, Gozo, who had George in the cage. And it was just the most amazing experience. I mean, we're still kind of coming to terms with it because we can't believe, it sounds silly, but it's like he's become our cat. We can't get over it. You see, Sarah looked after my cats for me when I was having the back surgery and has helped a lot with the cats because I've got this shoulder problem, so I can't do their cat toilets. So it's been a little bit of a kind of a, she's just been super helpful. That's the best way to put it. But I think as we start to, so that's something else that we will be exploring on this channel. So manifestation, vortexes, timeline shifting, and you'll hear a lot of astrologers and a lot of intuitives and channelers talking about similar things. Now, this happened to us last night. So as we bring this video to a close, we have to tell you what happened last night. Now I want you to take over, Sarah, because you spotted it first.
Okay, so we were just sitting, rambling about various things as we do. And suddenly I said, "Can you hear that noise?" And Penny was, yeah, I can hear something. "Is it the fridge?" And I said, no, it's not the fridge. She said, "Oh, is it my water tanks?" Because she's had some problems with her hot water tanks. So I went to check them in both bathrooms. No, it wasn't the water tanks. The noise abated, but then suddenly I said, "What is that going across the sky?" She goes, "Oh, it's a plane." And I went, no, not a plane. That doesn't look like a plane. There was no red light flashing. It was going at great speed. It was going at quite a high altitude, wasn't it? And then it was
fast.
And incredibly fast. And, we see so many planes, coming into land at Malta Airport. We know they start to,
go into their descent.
Exactly, go into their descent.
Yeah.
We're used to the flight patterns. We're sort of in the flight pattern here, so we see so many of them. This was not hovering like a plane, was it?
No, because what happened was we then went out onto my terrace and then we could get a better view and we just saw, and I said, no, that's not a plane. Because what happened was it shot across the sky. Now, it couldn't have been an asteroid, meteorite or anything like that because it stopped dead still in the sky, in the distance. It was pitch black, by the way. There were stars out. It wasn't a star. It just suddenly reached a point on the horizon where it stopped. And then it started to descend very slowly until it just disappeared. Now, we reasoned it out with, could it be, because UFOs are now called UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. And I said, could it be something to do with the military that obviously is top secret? So obviously we have no answer for that. But because we live in the Mediterranean, so we're only at 2-3 hours from Cyprus here?
Yeah, it's 2 hours.
About 2 hours from Cyprus, which of course is a base for fighter jets for the Middle East and all the situation that's going on out there. And obviously going further east, Ukraine and Eastern Europe and Russia. So we sat out there for quite a while and just kind of trying to absorb what had happened. But the sound that we had heard, this kind of, it was like a high-pitched frequency. I can still hear it in my mind's, in my ear's mind, if you know what I mean. And we just thought, well, it is what it is. We saw an UAP, an unexplained aerial phenomena.
And what was extraordinary was, when I was going home, I have all these regular cats that I meet and greet on the way home. Not a cat to be seen, not a person to be seen. Incredible silence, which is very unusual for a Friday night. You know, there's normally a lot going on. So there was a very kind of eerie feel. But this actually follows on from a few weeks ago. I have a very strange deaf cat. Who's, you know, not quite all there.
Not quite the full ticket.
He isn't. You know, he's special, and he has certain sensitivities that are overdeveloped. And he woke me up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, I wasn't best pleased, but he was sitting at my bedroom window, just staring and making strange noises. And I looked out, and I was sort of, you know, he's a bit of a plane spotter, so I thought, oh, it's a plane. But no,
Do tell them his name, it's wonderful.
Murray. He was named after Andy Murray. So
The tennis player.
I hope I don't get sued by Andy Murray for this.
I could be very flattered.
Well,
a deaf cat?
deaf tie cat? I don't know, but
Anyway, carry on.
It was this very strange sort of spherical type light that was just hovering. Again, there was a very high-pitched frequency, which possibly Murray was picking up on, but I could certainly hear and feel. And, you know, again, that was a really strange experience. And I was, gosh, what is this? You know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and, you know, there's no lights on. It's completely dark out there, but there's this thing up in the sky that we can see. And obviously Murray, you know, he's fascinated by anything that's up in the sky, but he was just in a particularly sort of weird type of response mode to it. So, you know, I told Penny about it the next day, and, you know, she was sort of, oh gosh, that's really exciting. I've always wanted to see one of those things. And then clearly she manifested one last night.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Proves the power of manifestation.
And I think what's so super interesting is that there's been a lot of talk lately in videos that I've picked up on YouTube about the prophecies of the Hopi Indians, and how they talk about that there's an age which they think is happening around now, where the star people return to stop us destroying ourselves, which of course at the moment would make an awful lot of sense. So I just throw that in as a kind of subject that we may investigate and go into a little bit more. But before I close things down, Sarah, is there anything else that you want to actually say?
No, I mean, I think obviously you can see we've had a load of really interesting experiences, and you know, there's a load of topics that we've got that we want to cover, that we want to share with you, but also we would welcome you, any ideas from you, anything that you would like to ask us, you know, and any sort of subjects you'd like us to cover as well, and you know, for us to consult with BM on as well. Unfortunately, he doesn't come up with the right lottery numbers, though.
No. So don't ask.
Please
that.
don't ask that, because you know, I've already asked him that. He said the time's not right for you.
Nobody seems to be able to do that. I don't know why, but there you go.
Well,
but because we have to. Well, actually, because anyway, manifestation of abundance should be just a natural process, and you don't get it by wishing to win the lottery. You just spend a lot of money, and the money goes out and it never comes in. So it's actually the kind of opposite that one has to do. By not spending the money on a lottery ticket, you are encouraging abundance to remain with you. Would you kind of adhere to that a little bit?
I think that's a fair appraisal, yes. But,
for someone who's always worrying about money, you know.
And I keep saying, no, you're in place of lack. Get into the place of abundance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, on this note, I want to say thank you so much. If you've actually got to the end of this 39 minutes and 11 seconds, bless you all for coming here to watch us. And please like, share, subscribe, and please drop us a comment in the comment section. And by the way, in the description box, you will find Sarah's email, which is, website, which is
www.hypnotherapybysarah.com.
So if you want to book a session, past life regression, or find out from Sarah's website what she actually covers, then please go to her website. And as I say, it's in the description box underneath the video. And also, if you would like an astrology session with me, or a chat about channeling, or kind of like, I suppose I could describe it as spiritual guidance, then my website is www.pennydix.com, and that is also in the website. No, it's not. It's in the description box underneath the video. So we are planning to do, and this is where I think you might find this super exciting, a live Q&A session so that we can actually interact with you and you can find out and ask us, and we will be, in a sense, channeling on demand. So that will come soon. Can't promise you when yet, but it will be soon. And so on that note, I would like to say thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye from you.
Yeah, goodbye everybody.
And thanks for joining us. We will be back soon, and I'll see you soon. Great, thanks a lot. Bye for now.